In the web column in this month's magazine, I'm having a look at creating a banner animation in Dreamweaver MX2004. We started animations in last month's magazine, and I've continued them this month to give you a better looking banner and to show you some of the effects that you can create with animations. We weren't able to do a video last month, so I'm hoping that this video will cover both issues of the magazine, so that if you were in any way confused about last month's tutorial or were having a little difficulty getting a handle on animations, hopefully this will answer the queries that you had. If you're using Dreamweaver MX2004, before you start, you need to install the latest update for the program. The reason for this is that the timeline feature was actually omitted from the original distribution of Dreamweaver MX2004. My understanding, and it could be hearsay, is that Macromedia thought that people didn't use it anyway, and so they just dropped that feature from the program. And then there was an outcry from users who apparently do use the feature, and Macromedia put it back where it had been in previous versions of the program for quite some number of years now. One of the downsides of it being removed from MX 2004 is that it's no longer in the help system. So even though you can buy back the timeline feature, you won't find any help relating to it, as that's been permanently removed from the help file. You'll know if you've got the update installed or not by clicking the window menu, and if timelines is available on that menu, you've got the latest update, or you've got an earlier version of Dreamweaver where this tool was available. If you don't have timelines in the menu, you'll need to go and install the update. In the magazine this month, I'm creating a page banner, and so far I've got 3 layers already in this document loaded with the requisite images. This is the first layer. It's positioned 10 pixels in from the left and 15 pixels down from the top of the browser window, and it's containing one of the images from the banner that I designed in Photoshop. There's another image across here, very similar, same sort of positioning. It's 15 pixels down from the top, so it lines up very nicely, and it's got a width and height inserted in there to make sure that the layer is exactly the right size to contain that particular image. There's a third image in the middle here, and this is a different format image to the other two. The two photographs are both JPEG format images, and I use that because JPEG is the best format to use for photographic images. Now the one in the middle, this image here, needs to have transparency. Each of these holes in the top of this film strip are transparent. You can see through them, and so is this area in the middle. So it was necessary for me to save this as a GIF format file, because GIF will handle transparency whereas JPEG won't. So this is in a separate layer all on its own. But again, the top setting has been set to 15 pixels, and these are all nicely lined up on the screen. We're missing one image, and that is the vineyard scene that's going to be scrolling in this transparent area of the GIF image, and I've left that to insert with you. So I'm going to choose Insert, Layout, Objects, and then Layer, and that will add a new layer to this document. So I'm just going to move it down here where we can see it. Now I'm going to click in this BG image area to load my vineyard image. Here it is in the image collection for this project, and I can read the size here too if I need to. It's 570 pixels long by 200 pixels wide. I'm just going to click to insert that. Let's double click and it's inserted in the document here, and let's change it, the layers width and height, so that it's just exactly the right size for this particular image. Now I can move this layer up into position, and it's going to sit on top of this film strip. It's going to be at position 230 on the screen, and it's going to be at 15 down from the top. And you can just work out those measurements by adding this 10 margin to the width of this particular image, and you know where this image layer should start, and that's also where the film strip image layer starts. To view the layers, as you can see, things are now not as visible as they should be. In actual fact, this vignette image should be behind the film strip. Let's choose Window Layers, and that will allow me to settle this layer issue happening here. And what I need to do is to move this layer 4, which is the vineyard layer. I'm just going to label it because that's going to make this a little easier to follow. So this is the vineyard layer, and we're going to set its Z order to 1, and that will push it behind everything else. When you have layers in a document, in a web page, the smallest number is the one at the very back and the largest numbers are at the front. So we want to make sure that this particular image, which is the film strip here, which is layer 2, I'm just going to label that for you and for me. Okay, the film strip is going to have a larger value than the vineyard so that it will sit in front of the vineyard picture. This is the cows on the left, we'll call it cows, and we can give that a value of 2. That would be fine. As long as it's sitting in front of the vineyard, that's all it needs to do. And this layer here is the farm building. So this makes it easy in the layers palette to see where everything is, and when you've got a layer behind another layer, being able to click on it in the layer area here lets you select it so you can work on it, whereas when it's showing the way it's going to show on the web page, it's difficult to select this layer that is in actual fact behind this film strip. Let's have a look and see what we have so far. To do this, I'm going to choose File, Preview in Browser, and then I'm going to choose my browser, which is Internet Explorer. I'm going to be prompted to save changes to the file, and so you'll just click yes. The first time that you get to this point, you'll actually have to give the file a name, but beyond that, Dreamweaver's just giving it the previous name that it had, so I'm going to click yes. And now the browser is opening, and this is what the banner for the page is going to look like. There's no animation yet, but we have our 2 photographs on either side. We have our film strip over the top and our image in the middle. And this is the image that we're going to animate. To do that, I need to select this vineyard layer, and I need to add it to the timeline down here. So I do that by clicking on it. I just want to make sure that I've got it selected. I'm going to right click and choose Add to Timeline. Now it's very easy to actually click the image inside, or the inside of that layer, and as you can see, this larger menu does not have Add to Timeline on it. So if you find that you're not getting the right one, just spend a little time trying to click on the very edge of this layer so that you can add it to the timeline. Then we're going to check down here to make sure that we've got the right layer on the timeline, and yes, it's the vineyard one. That's, as you can see, it's very handy if you do name your layers, because you can see very clearly whether you've got the right one or not. I'm just going to click close on that. And let's hide this for a minute and let's concentrate on the timeline. The timeline has a number of features. This is a channel, this strip along here, and there are a number of channels, so you could be animating a number of different objects. We're just going to animate this vineyard image. These are frames here, so at the moment this animation is going to play for 15 frames, which is about 1 second, and I can tell that because this is the frames per second is set to 15. Right now, if we do play our animation, nothing's really going to happen because we haven't set anything up to happen. To play it, I'm just going to click this button, and as you can see, nothing happens because we haven't done any animation yet. So let's have a look and see how we would animate this image. The first thing we're going to do when animating this image is to actually set the animation to play for a longer period of time than just 1 second. I'm going to drag this keyframe. A keyframe is a frame that has this sort of hollow dot in it, I'm going to drag it out to 60 frames, and that's going to give me about 4 seconds worth of animation. To configure something to happen in the animation, you have to set up some sort of change. Now what I want to happen with this animation is I want this vineyard scene to sit on the browser window for a short period of time, very stable, and then I want it to move, and it's going to move in this direction, so that this part of the image over here will move over, well, under the film strip. At the moment it's on top, but that's only because I have it selected. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a keyframe at frame 10. Just going to right click on this position and choose the Add Keyframe menu option. What that does is it allows me to stabilize the vineyard image between frames 1 and 10, because I'm not going to make a change at frame 10. It's going to be stable in this point, in these 10 frames. What I'm going to do now then is to make a change at frame 60. I'm going to move this image to a different position, and what Dreamweaver will do is it will create a seamless animation from the last keyframe to this keyframe. So the image is going to move within this period of 50 frames. Got this keyframe selected, and now what I'm going to do is to move this image to the position I want it to take by the time it reaches frame 60. Just going to check here in my top and left values to make sure that it's actually not going to move vertically while it does move horizontally. All I want it to do is to move horizontally. So that's where this image is going to be at frame 60. When I'm back at frame 10, I want it to be over here. And as you can see, when I click on frame 60, Dreamweaver is telling me that's where that image is going to be at frame 60, and this is where it's going to be at frame 10. To have this play when the web page loads, I need to click the autoplay button, otherwise nothing will happen when the web page loads. Let's take this play indicator all the way back to frame 1, and let's move across frame by frame to see what's happening. So I'm going to click to frame 5, and now frame 8, 9, 10, and now we're starting to move beyond frame 10, which is where the start of the animation took place. So watch as I click through almost frame by frame as this image is now moving across the screen. And it's going to stop at the position that we set it when it arrives at frame 60. And when it goes to 60, in this view, Dreamweaver just rolls it back and starts all over again. That's not going to happen on the web page, though. It's only going to play once. In addition, on the web page, it's not going to play in front of the film strip that I have. It's going to play behind it, because that's the way we have it set up. Let's have a look and see how it plays on the web page. File, Preview and Browser, Internet Explorer. I'm going to click OK to saving the changes to the file. And here it is. And as you can see, that image is now moving behind that frame. I'm going to just press F5, which is the refresh key, and you can see it again. As you can see, the image pauses slightly before taking off. We can make changes to the length of time by simply stretching this out. Now we've set the change to take place. Well, let's make it start at frame 20 and go to frame 80. It's going to move a little bit slower because it's got 60 frames to get across here now, whereas it had only 50 last time. And it's also going to pause for a little bit longer at the start. Let's check that. We have the pause. The pause is a little bit longer, and now the movement is just a little bit slower. And you can slow that down as much as you like. You can also make it move faster at the beginning and slower at the end. Let's add a keyframe in at frame 60. Right click and choose Add Keyframe. This is the position that the image should be by the time it reaches frame 60. But let's in actual fact move that forward a bit. So let's take the lion's share. Actually, I think I'm going to take it back this way. This is much better. It's going to make the lion's share of the travel between frames 20 and 50. So in 30 frames, it's going to get all the way across here. And then we're going to give it another 30 frames to make the last little bit of travel. So we should see some fast movement and then some slowing down. Faster movement. And now we have some slowing down as it arrives at its destination. You can add other objects to this timeline. There is of course no need to add any of these objects that we have visible at the moment to the timeline because they're not going to move. What you could do is you could make a text layer that moves. Let's have a look at how the text layer would be created. We'll choose Insert, Layout Objects, Layer, and this adds a new layer to the document. I'm going to type my text in here and I'm going to call it Farm Tours. I'm going to select the text and make it larger so that we can see it more clearly, and let's set its color to something light so that it can be seen over the images. I'm going to move it into position here, and this will be the starting point for the text. Just going to size that layer so that we can move it carefully across the screen. I'm going to start at a top margin of 80, and if I set this to 8 it's going to be easy for me to remember when I move it across shortly. Let's have a look at the layer setting for this new layer. I'm going to call it Text, and it will now appear up in the layers palette here as text. Vignette is at the very bottom. Its Z order is 1 and the film strip is 5, which means that the film strip sits over the top of the vineyard. We want Farm Tours to appear behind this cow. We want it to appear between the film strip and the vineyard. So we want it to be a higher value than the vineyard, otherwise it will be tucked behind it. So number 2 in terms of the layer order will ensure that the text is in front of the vineyard but still behind the film strip, which is up here at number 5. Do have a slight problem here with cows though, because these two are on the same Z order. So what I want to do is make the cows higher than the Farm Tours so that it will sit in front of it. So we won't see Farm Tours until it appears in this film strip. And to do that, I'm going to give the cows layer a value of 3, which is hidden the text behind the cows. It's behind the film strip, but it's in front of the vineyard. It might take you a little bit of talking yourself through exactly where things are supposed to be, but you'll get the hang of it fairly quickly. The other thing that you should do is always set the Z order before you put things on the timeline, because it saves you having to make sure that every keyframe on the timeline has the same Z order. I'm going to just right click this now and choose Add to Timeline, and now the text is added to the timeline. Now it jumped in at the point at which I had the play button on, but I don't want it quite there. Let's start it about here. Going to stretch this out so the animation takes a little bit longer to play, and now at this keyframe, the last keyframe, I want to set where this image or the text will be. So I'm going to move it across into position in the middle of this film strip, and I'm just going to check to make sure that its top margin is what we set the top margin of it to be originally, so that it's not going to move vertically as it moves horizontally. Let's have a look at this. Going to select my film strip and my cows and my farm building so everything should be in about the right place, and let's run through this. As you can see, what's happening is that at this point the text is starting to move. It's over here, So we won't see it because it's behind the cows. We won't see it until it appears in behind the film strip, but as I said, over the top of the vineyard. Let's come across here. Farm Tours is going to arrive in position well before the image. As you can see at frame 55, Farm Tours is where we want it to be, but the vineyard image still has some traveling to go, and so it's going to move while the text is still stable. Let's have a look at that in the web browser. And here comes Farm Tours. Now it's been crunched up into 2 lines, so I'll need to take care of that. But that's the basics of adding animations to a banner. And as you can see, with some smart layering, with using transparent GIFs, for example, and also making sure that the layers are layered correctly so they tuck behind each other where they should be, you can create some quite sophisticated effects in a very short time using the timeline tool in Dreamweaver MX2004.